Hey everybody, Max and Brian here for IGN with some very exciting news. You might have already heard about this, but we got news this morning that Lucasfilm Games is going to give Ubisoft the rights to make a Star Wars game. Massive. The folks behind The Division and The Division 2 are going to be making an open-world, story-driven Star Wars game, which is very exciting because if you were unaware, Electronic Arts has up until now had the exclusive rights since 2013 to make Star Wars games. Brian, let's talk about this.
Yes, so obviously this is awesome news. First thing to get out of the way, the EA Star Wars games will continue at least for a few years, based on what we know so far. So that probably means we're going to get a Fallen Order 2 and stuff like that. Maybe a Battlefront 3, fingers crossed. Battlefront 2 is a game that came together after quite some time and turned out to be pretty good. But yeah, this is fantastic because it means that EA, who once had the exclusive rights to develop all Star Wars games that weren't sort of like VR experience-shaped things like Vader Immortal, is now losing that license in terms of exclusivity. Those doors are being opened and other developers can jump on. It seems like a lot of different companies and a lot of different publishers will get the opportunity to start making Star Wars games. But for this one that we know about first, it's tough to say exactly when we'll be playing it. We're guessing somewhere around 2023, but this will be a massive, no pun intended, open world Star Wars game, which is something I think a lot of us have wanted for a long time. There was Amy Hennig's notorious Ragtag game, which was canceled. There was Star Wars 1313, which was the sort of seedy underbelly, third-person action-adventure, Uncharted-esque game. And then obviously a few years ago, we got Fallen Order, which was really awesome. But this looks like it's moving into more of the traditional kind of like Ubisoft open world territory. And I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've gotten used to Ubisoft open world games as being somewhat formulaic, but on the flip side of that, they also kind of have it down to a science and they know how to make good open world games. I can't really think of a good EA open world game we've gotten in the last 5-10 years. You know, that's not really their focus. To me, it always felt like Battlefront 2 was kind of trying to please everybody, and then Fallen Order and Squadrons are just kind of starting to hone in on making Star Wars games that were different focuses. But even then, expecting, I think, one publisher and its sort of stable of studios to put out all of the Star Wars games kind of means that you got to pick and choose what you're going to make. And the fact that, you know, Lucasfilm is sort of opening this up to different publishers making stuff, and not just Star Wars. We got word that Machine Games is doing the Indiana Jones game. That is really exciting to me because that means that it's not that we're going to get, you know, quantity over quality. It's we're going to get, hopefully, quantity and quality. And,
right.
You know, that we've seen a similar thing with how Disney has approached games under Marvel.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at Insomniac's take on Spider-Man, which at the time of it first being announced, it was this completely out of left field idea. It was, you know, kind of really surprising to find out that they were the ones working on it. Although with a pedigree, we knew it'd be awesome. And yes, we got, you know, 2 awesome games out of it so far. We'll continue to. We got an Iron Man VR game. We got the Avengers game, which, you know, some people like, obviously some people don't like, but still the idea of different IPs under one massive sort of brand umbrella, going to different studios who can pick and choose the stories they want to tell and with which characters is really, really awesome. I think that makes perfect sense for something as vast as Star Wars. And it's also like, I don't necessarily think that it was doing the IP any favors to be sort of huddled in one corner under EA. Like, EA took a very long time to kind of hit their stride with that franchise. I do think that towards the end with Fallen Order, Battlefront 2, Squadrons, obviously the first Battlefront had like that VR thing too. Like there's some cool stuff in there, but it seems like they canceled just as many games as they published. They were also, you know, mired in controversy with all the Loot Crate stuff, which ended up being one of the most sort of seismic shifts we've ever seen in the industry. It really brought that to the front of the conversation. And so this is going to open this up and bring this IP into a lot of different studios. I saw even this morning, Devolver Digital was basically like, hey, we want to make a Star Wars game. Like that's the benefit of this. Like you can basically grab different studios from all over the place and have them attack Star Wars from different angles. This is the strategy that worked for LucasArts for the longest time and Lucasfilm Games, right? Like this was them being like, you know, not everything necessarily has to be canonical and interconnected, but this team wants to make Yoda stories, you know, and this team wants to make this over here.
I mean,
you know,
it's easy. I think we talk about LucasArts as being like one singular company, but this was kind of their approach back in the day, you know, before the dark times, before the Empire, and it was, you know, we got all sorts of different games. Like they weren't always winners. Like we got Star Wars Dark Forces. We got, you know, Rebel Assault. We got Super Bombad Racing. We got Masters of the Terras Kasi. Like sometimes they were really it was crap. Sometimes it was really bad, but it was interesting. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just this sort of design by committee, honed down to be like, here's what our focus group says people want from a game. So I'm hoping we get some more like that. It's actually weird to look at sort of Marvel and Star Wars side by side because, prior to sort of Marvel games coming along and getting, Insomniac on Spider-Man or Ultimate Alliance 3, Activision had the rights to a lot of Marvel's games. And I feel like they took a very different approach from how EA handled Star Wars, which was instead of trying to release these big, huge, massive, overly polished, hyper-focused sort of tentpole AAA features, they kind of approached it more in like a AA angle where they were putting out, for lack of a better word, like licensed shovelware.
Yeah.
There were some good ones in there, but we had like High Moon Studios made a Deadpool game, which would have been phenomenal if it had another year in the oven. But instead, they were like, no, this is a holiday release. This has to come out. And we saw, the beloved Spider-Man 2 game for PS2, sort of gradually, it became, Shattered Dimensions, and then it kind of became Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they took this, beloved, use of a Spider-Man license, and they kind of bled it dry. And I feel like you could say the same thing happened to a certain degree with Star Wars games kind of into the 2000s, where there was, you'd get like really crappy Game Boy Advance games or, throwaway mobile stuff. But, amidst that, we also get stuff like, KOTOR or Republic Commando, really beloved games. And I hope we get to see more stuff like that moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is going to help a lot. I think that, like, in general, the Disney Star Wars era has been kind of all over the place. It felt like simultaneously just machine gun firing everywhere, but also completely buttoned up, which is very odd to have sort of those two things warring with each other. And I think now they're kind of like lifting the guidelines a little bit. It doesn't, they're moving into stuff with the High Republic era, which is this sort of like open playing field, this giant sandbox of where they can explore with these games. In terms of Massive's game, it's tough to say exactly what it will be. Like, it could go into the Division looter shooter multiplayer, games as a service route, which I'm personally not as excited about. I'll still play with it for sure, but like that's not really what I want. Or it could go in the kind of traditional open world Ubisoft formula, which yes is formulaic, but it works. It's fundamentally sound. Like, yeah, we can be climbing towers and riding speeder bikes around instead of like horses and drones and watchdogs and stuff. But there's something there that's fun. There's something that makes me want to tick all those boxes in those games. They're really good at lore. They're really good at sort of like creating a believable world and stuff like that. And so I think this is awesome. It also seems like this is going to be something, this could be like a whole new franchise. Like this could be next to their Far Cry's and their Watch Dogs and their Assassin's Creed. I think we're going to see games of this ilk in this series for a very long time.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I hope, at the very least, if I don't like what Massive is cooking up, then this means that it's opening up the doors for other studios handling Star Wars. So if they don't make what I want, then somebody else hopefully will. Now, one thing we still don't know, obviously the big deal between Star Wars and EA was inked in 2013, and it is not 10 years since that. So a lot of people are kind of wondering, does this mean that the Massive game isn't going to come out until 2023? Because that would be sort of when the deal's off. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how these things work, but I'm hoping we get to see it sooner rather than later.
Thank God you're not a lawyer.
Yeah, I'd be a terrible lawyer. Look at me. Like, just, call
just
me.
a heads up, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know if you thought.
Are you injured? Call me, please. Anyway, what do you think about this? Are you excited to see what Massive Star Wars game is? Would you like to see another studio handling something different? Do you think Devolver Digital should be making a dating sim about Malakili, the Rancor Keeper, trying to romance Sai Snoodles? The answer is yes. Sound off in the comments. What? Anyway, sound off in the comments. What are you looking forward to about Star Wars? Who's your favorite weird character in Jabba's palace? Let us know. And for everything Star Wars, video games, and all of the best stuff in life, keep it right here on IGN.
I just want a game where you talk about like Bib Fortuna, where his 5 years, he finally gets at the top of the food chain at Jabba's palace, and it's just him. And he's got a few henchmen around, everything's going great, and then it ends with him sitting on the throne and no one comes in to bother him. It's just a perfect game.
Give me like Yakuza's business management sim, but it's just Jabba the Hutt hiring different Muppets to run his space cocaine deals.